Ladies and gentlemen, your attention please. Father Brown, the priest detective of G.K. Chesterton asks, where does a wise man hide a pebble? On the beach. And where does a wise man hide a leaf? In a forest. And what does he do if there is no forest? He grows a forest to hide it in. That was a clue. One of many I intend to give you tonight, and you will need all of them. Because what you have stumbled into tonight is nothing more or less than an old-fashioned, closed circle. Telephone wires have been cut. Floodwaters have washed away the bridge. My God! You mean it has to be one of us? Country House Whodunnit. But it has a difference. In order to save you from the miserable banality of the last scene, where the murderous clergyman, or whoever it turns out to be, backs weapon in hand toward the French windows snarling, I warn you, stay where you are, all of you. You'll never put me behind bars. I have decided to tell you who the murderer is at the outset, thus saving you an evening's whispered speculation with your neighbor and the inevitable letdown when you find out you guessed wrong. I am the murderer. I done it, or rather will have done it before the evening is much older. And who am I? Well, you must permit me a little evasive mimicry and the hope you will never guess simply from my voice. But I will give you all a sporting chance. Throughout the evening, I will let drop in profusion certain deliberate mistakes from which you will be able to deduce quite easily who I am. But you must pay the greatest attention. Wool gathering and expecting all the work to be done for you simply won't do tonight. Okay? Good. Then off we go. And remember, listen hard and ask yourself the question, where would you hide a murderer?
The boozing butler. Hawkins, isn't it, Harry Hawkins?
No, sir, Perkins. Archibald Perkins. May I suggest a cocktail before dinner? Smooth on the palate, yet astonishingly galvanizing at the brain center. I call it a zombie whammy.
No, thank you, Hawkins. I'll have an Oloroso shirt.
A sweet shame for dinner. The man has a taste of a scullery maid. It is Perkins, sir.
I don't think so. There are some people who never forget the face, and others who never forget the tilt of a head as it swills an employer's gin. I am in the latter category. What's more, I've seen you somewhere before, quite recently.
Only, sir, if you visited the establishments of Lady Cunard, or Lady Astor, or Mrs. Simpson, in whose employment I've been in since the Syrian embassy.
Aye, descending order of gentility.
I assure you, sir, my references are excellent.
My friend, you invented your references just as you invented your name. They both bear the unmistakable mark of the mendacious menu.
Hey, you got a lot of nerve, you have.
Ah, Cockney repartee. There's nothing quite like it anywhere in the world.
What's your game?
Blackmail.
Blackmail?
Precisely. As in the phrase, blackmail, that's an ugly word, Inspector.
I don't think I follow.
Come now, Hawkins. Let us not be obtuse. The others will be here in a moment, and I'm sure you wouldn't want them or your employer to overhear our little talk, now do you?
Mrs. Basby? And what do I care about her? A lawyer small fry in the aristocracy.
Then why accept this position?
Only temporary. A few weeks, in fact, until I receive a very important post in North America.
It rather depends on whether or not your future employer discovers that you were discharged from the Syrian embassy in Dublin for being implicated in the theft of the Suleiman tea service.
Tea service?
A solid 24-karat gold, encrusted with precious jewels, worth the king's ransom.
I don't know what you're on about.
Surely you recall it. It was carried away piece by piece in the bags of a bogus British football team. Came to play the embassy. It played jolly well, as a matter of fact. Silly of them, really. That's how we came to suspect they were, in fact, a bogus British football team.
Look, you can't pin the Dublin plate caper on me.
Can and I will if necessary. Hold here a signed confession of his London goldsmith, who melted it all down. So you see, as your countrymen say, the pig is up.
The jig is up.
The jig, 1,000 pardons, jig.
What are you going to do? Expose me?
No, it's not the game of Andreas Capodistrio, extortioner San Burrell. A knowledge of other people's picadillies has got to be made to pay off.
How much?
How much will you earn in America?
$50 a week.
No, let us double it for the sake of untruth, which makes 100. Or the current rate of exchange, let's see, after 25 pounds. Oh, much too much for a light fingered gentleman's gentleman. Let's say a third, 8 pounds a week.
8 nicker a week? Oh no, listen, you don't know what expenses I got. Me mother's got arthritis, something cruel. It cost me a packet.
Oh, and what of your blind eldest daughter?
Daughter?
Dragging her undernourished limbs around the gutters of London, selling matches to support the leprous sister, no doubt.
Have a heart, governor.
Aye, but I had a most generous heart, only asking for a third of your income. In contradistinction as is to you, you have none at all. If you had a mom or a wife or a daughter, you sold them all into the kitty houses by now.
Kitty houses?
Brothels, whorehouses.
Cat houses. Look, Chiefy, 8 quid, I'll have nothing left after taxes.
Then why not come and work for me? See that you live well enough.
Why? Do you need a butler?
No, just a drunken drudge. Not that servicing people is really your fault, is it?
Good evening. I'm Angela Basby. I'll be your hostess.
Andreas Capodistrio, charm.
I'm so glad you could come. You must think it a bit unusual for a husband to invite guests who his wife doesn't know. But I have such little time for social activities, and it does delight him so to fill up the house on the weekends. Normally he'd be here to greet you himself, but I'm afraid he hasn't arrived yet. I must say I'm getting a bit worried.
Madam, Sir phoned an hour ago from your London flat. It seems his car is up the spout, but will be here as soon as he can.
Oh dear, poor Silas. I do hope I'll be able to cope.
Perhaps I could tempt Madam with a zombie whammy.
No, you could not. Scotch and soda.
Yes, very well, madam. Very well.
But we do know each other.
What?
Yes, indeed. There are some people who never forget the face, and others who never forget the details of a misused client's account. I am in the latter category. What's more, I sent a letter to your office. Didn't you get it? I marked it personal.
I'll get you another one now.
So, you're the filthy rotter.
Not so loud, Mrs. Basby. Surely you don't want your butler to know about your Maltois embezzlement?
To think that you're the man my husband sees fit to invite for the weekend. You can leave my house this instant. I'll have no black-bellied swine under my roof.
Tut, Mrs. Basby. Where's your stiff mouth?
My what?
Your famous English sang-froid. Stiff mouth?
I'm afraid I don't follow you.
Perhaps Mr. Capodistrio is referring to a stiff upper lip man.
Yes, indeed it is so.
Thank you, Perkins. That will be all for the moment.
That helpful manservant you have. Quite sensational powers of interpretation. Perhaps you could find him a position in the League of Nations.
I don't need any of your damned impudence, Capodistrio. Come to think of it, I don't need you here at all. Get out.
No, I don't think so. A weekend in the country is what I enjoy most about England. Everyone is so relaxed and jolly good chaps. Except, of course, when they find themselves playing croquet with a criminal or billiards with a bounder, then they drop you like a hot yam.
Potato.
Potato.
What the devil's that?
I haven't the faintest idea.
Now look here. What proof do you have of any unlawful practice on my part? Just tell me that, eh?
Well, from indignation to bluster, quite the usual route. Next comes wheedling and then pitiable appeals.
My fist in your face comes next if you don't stop prevaricating and tell me what you know.
I refer specifically to the Reverend Nigel Armstrong Tweaks, a charitable trust fund for the sons of Indian.
But I can explain that.
To the deprived dependents, to the trustees, or to the police.
Very well. What do you want?
£2,500.
And after that another 25, I suppose, and so on?
Not necessarily. Depends very much on inflation. Plays the very devil with the scrupulous extortionist craft.
The only thing that's scrupulous about you, Capodistrio, is your adherence to swinishness.
Also, of course, in your case, it is to the exalted standards of the British Law Society.
At least I'm not a bloody blackmailer.
Oh, what hypocrite you English are. Stealing from unsuspecting clients is unquestionably the favorite pastime of solicitors in this country. But a little circumspect blackmail is regarded as being quite beyond the pocket.
Hell!
Thank you. I think I'll ask for £3,500.
Now look here. I'm sorry if in the heat of the moment I seem to draw some distinction between our activities. You know, as they say, the law was invented purely to enrich lawyers.
Exactly. And blackmail was invented to enrich blackmailers. But, by all means, cogitate most deeply, my dear Mrs. Basby. Take your time. I shall be fascinated by your decision.
Evening. Mrs. Basby, isn't it?
Quite so.
Natural Poyat. Your husband invited me for the weekend. Met with Kitty Codrington's last Wednesday in town.
Yes, of course. He's been delayed. His car's broke down. Oh, a cocktail. Perkins has mixed a most ferocious concoction. He's christened it the,
A zombie whammy, sir.
Good God! No, I'll have a pinky.
A what?
I believe the Rear Admiral's referring to a pink gin.
And, up to a little finger, eh?
Eh? What?
In America, the little finger is called a pinky.
There's no accounting for a country which calls a lieutenant commander a lieutenant commander.
Do you take the angle stirrer in or out, sir?
Out.
And there's no accounting for a country which calls its backsides and its admirals by a common name, is there, Rear Admiral?
You're a damned insolent fellow, sir. Who the devil are you?
Andreas Capodistrio, name to conjure with.
Weak, aren't you?
Hardly. All the races of the Levant course through my blood.
Nah, 11 times. That accounts for it.
Counts for what, Rear Admiral?
Your gall, sir. Your infernal gall. Why, I remember the men couldn't put into a harbour east of Naples without your lot swarming over the poop deck, flogging your overripe figs.
How's dinner progressing?
I have been informed that there are no significant problems. Perhaps you would care to consult the menu? Wait. No, wait.
I remember you too, Rear Admiral.
Really? I hardly think we're acquainted.
Well, only through a mutual friend, and now last taken from us. One Matthias Lacus, a very pretty boy with eyes like Kalamata olives, which he used once indiscreetly to encourage the ravenous attentions of an old sea dog in the port of Heraklion.
What?
There are some people who never forget the face, and others who never forget the details of an act of hoop-deck pederasty. I mean this latter category. It's nastier than the squelch of ripe figs, I think. And so was what happened later.
Later?
Shame, remorse, suicide, and afterward the big hush-up.
But what is it you're suggesting, sir?
Please cease to bluster, Rear Admiral. He who buggers the bugle boy does not play the tune.
Preposterous.
What's it?
Everything you're saying, sir. That's what's preposterous.
I have the evidence. The naughty boy wrote before he shot himself.
Who would believe it?
Sunday newspapers.
It was years ago. Why have you waited so long?
There's always a moment juste in these affairs. You ought to receive a knighthood, are you not?
You know that?
Of course. It's my practice to make myself privy to the secrets of the honors list. Why, only a week ago, a certain incipient peer parted quite happily with 4,000 pounds, rather than have the whole world know that he's ungovernably besotted by the backs of Boy Scouts' knees.
You're going too far.
Too far, Rear Admiral?
You damn cad. Is there no trick you wouldn't stoop to?
None. And from you, I shall only want 2,000 pounds.
Damn it, man. You must understand. All those boys were the same wherever you went in the bed. They led you on with their hot eyes and their sly, fetching ways. Wait, they took to that sort of thing as naturally as our lads take to cricket.
No. Poor Matthias. Poor Matthias was an exception. It's 2,000 pounds by the next fortnight, or, as they say, else.
I'll see you dead fast, you tremendous Greek founder!
Why, Rear Admiral, is something the matter?
No, I'm just stirring the gin.
Perkins, I'm utterly devastated. I know Queen Victoria slept in my room, but it would have been nice if someone to have straightened up after her. I need a slug of something chilled and remedial.
And some your whammy, my lady?
What the devil's that?
Oh, 1 jig of gin, 1 jig of rye, 1 jig of aquavit, 1 jig of sake, 1 jig of cream de cocoa, a ptarmigan's egg, dash orange bitters, dash garlic salt, dash sherbet fizz, dash ouzo with added malox. Shake and serve chilled, my lady.
Perkins, you must have lost your mind. I'll have a dry sherry. Oh, I loathe sherry. It tastes like embalming fluid. What are you having?
Oloroso sherry, madame. I'm afraid I have sweet tea.
I'm not sure I find them all that endearing. I'm Lady Tremorin.
Andreas Capodistrio. Enchanté.
Oh, you're supposed to shake it, not ingest it.
Your sherry, my lady.
Thanks, Perkins. Bottoms up. Oh, God. That stuff, it's like a cold swim. Once you get over the first shock, it's fine. Where's my hostess? Angela? Angela, where are you?
Oh, Charlotte, I was unapprised of your arrival.
Oh, well, you're appraised of it now.
Delighted to see you.
Hello, Nagji. How's the terror of the boys' navy?
Hello, Charlotte.
I didn't know you knew Silas and Angela.
Met him last week in town, invited me down.
Perhaps that's Silas.
If it is, sir, I'm sure he's as pissed as I am.
By the way, where is Silas?
Ditto. Some infernal nonsense about a car.
Well, who else is coming?
Dunno. He seems to have some dash queer taste in house guests, though.
Yes, it's not like Silas to have Greeks for the weekend.
Jolly bad form. I mean, when a fella goes to the country, doesn't expect to find a damn greasy jackanapes of a wago standing smacking at him in the drawing room.
Your sherry, my lady.
Oh, thanks, Perkins.
Anchors away.
Bottoms up.
Don't know how you could stand to drink that stuff.
Oh, it's my doctor, Nancy. He tells me I've got diabetes, bull quack. He took me off whiskey. Tiresome little maggot.
Better to snuff it from diabetes than from sherry poisoning, I'd have said. What? With me, it's hay fever.
And that's a funny thing for an old salt to have. I wouldn't have thought there was much hay at sea. What do you take for it?
Pink gin.
And I take money.
You take what, Mr.
Capodistrio, one of the Smyrna Capodistrios. I would advise you to remember the name well.
Well, I somehow doubt that I shall be capable of doing so.
However, it is very important to have a good memory, chère madame. There are some people who never forget a face, and others who never forget the slope of humiliated shoulders after the owner has been detected cheating at cards. I am in this latter category.
Cheating at cards?
Exactly 2 months ago in the Anglo-Swiss Bridge Club in Geneva, you were expelled given the bomb's rash.
What fearful piffle is this?
Useless to deny it, Lady Tremurin. A friend of mine who owed me a trifling favors on the committee.
I was unjustly accused. The secretary was some stupid little man who believed a malicious tittle-tattle of some junk
A
doctor.
greasy jackanapes. No, I don't think so. The decision was upheld by the whole committee. Fortunately for you, the affair was discreetly handled and no breath of it has reached the salons of London as yet.
What are you going to do?
I note your voice has suddenly a timid and tremulous sound.
Mr. I beg you to keep silent. My husband is a cabinet minister. A disclosure of this nature would ruin him.
Minister for War, is he not?
Indeed he is.
Ah, you have the remedy in your hand. I need information about the forthcoming Anglo-German naval agreement.
Naval agreement?
I want you to find out for me whether Germany is going to be allowed to build as many submarines as England.
How can I possibly find that out?
I'll ask your hubby.
But he is bound to secrecy. What you ask is treason. You must know. I can't do such a thing.
I know no such thing. The only question is, can you afford to be banned from every bridge table in London?
I would sooner disembowel myself with a teaspoon. I mean, how would I pass the afternoons?
There are other pursuits, I'm told, madame, of even greater popularity. The roll in the hay, the slap in the trigo. But perhaps such pre-dinner exercise is not to your taste.
Diabetes is debilitating enough without the additional fatigues of fornication.
I think I can show you ways of overcoming such fatigues.
I note, sir, that you are as impertinent as you are odious.
You are free to do so, madame. Just as long as you also note that I shall require that information by the first day of next month.
I don't know how they ever allow your kind into this country, you monstrous little turd.
Charlotte, is Mr. Capodistrio annoying you?
He really does have the most disobliging manner. I suppose people like that can't help it, though. After all, an upbringing in the slums of Smyrna can hardly be said to be adequate training for social exchanges in an English country drawing room. Silas must have taken leave of his senses.
He always did have a soft spot for lame dogs.
There's nothing lame about this dog. Not that it wouldn't be an exquisite pleasure to cripple him with a smashing boot up the bum.
Oh, quite so! I'm sure you're not alone in that sentiment, but here comes Lavinia and her young man.
He looks dramatically dishonest. Who is he?
Lord Bathgate's nephew.
Don't I recall some curious goings-on about all that, wasn't he?
Oh, no, now is not the time to repeat your memory.
Hello, Mrs. Bathby. It's absolutely super of your husband to invite us for the weekend.
You know my fiancé, Roger Dashwell, don't you?
How do you do?
How do you do? I'm afraid that Silas has been delayed, so I'm rather, as the saying goes, holding down the fort.
Ah, keeping the fuzzy wuzzies at bay, huh?
Why?
That's speaking.
A cocktail? It's called a King Kong Whammy.
A zombie whammy, actually, ma'am. The King Kong has the added monkey scrotum.
No, that's whiskey and splash for me, old boy. Darling?
A soft drink, please. Orange squash or something equally futile.
Oh, see, the old thing has a touch of her jaundice back. And bad luck, really. She looks like a blasted lemon in some lights.
Would bottled orangeade suffice, miss?
Super, Perkins. Do you know Lady Tremburine? And we're Admiral Natchwell Foliat. This is Lavinia Hargraves and Roger Dashwell.
How do you do?
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 And this is Mr. Capodistrio. Oh, it's you.
Indispensably.
Hardly that. Don't you mean indisputably? Oh, you know each other then?
Oh, yes. Miss Hargraves and I are old friends.
Well, we have met occasionally in London. I see. You seem somewhat surprised to see Mr. Capodistrio here. Oh, yes, I am a little.
Oh, perhaps it is seeing me in these clothes you're not used to.
I would have thought that it was you who wasn't used to them.
Oh, you mean I look a bit of a cheat in them?
Oh, no. I just meant they're a trifle nouveau, that's all.
And loud. Loud as a 16-inch shell. Ho, ho, ho.
Or the sound of a suicide gun?
Short-sighted, I've demolished nearly all of your outbuildings.
Well, now that you're here, let me introduce you to Lavinia Hargraves and Roger Dashwell. No. This is Lavinia Hargraves. And this is Roger Dashwell.
Oh, I'm so sorry. This blindness is a real curse.
Oh, don't worry, I'm quite used to it. Darling Roger here gets blind most nights of the week.
Solomon Park, ravishing one. As sober as dear old Solomon. Not that I couldn't use a snort right now. Perkins, he seems to feel the scotch needs another hour's maturing in the bottle before he serves it. God helps those, huh?
Would Madam care for my assistance in extricating her from that apparatus?
Please, Perkins, I don't want to be stuck behind here all day. Thank you for helping me, Perkins. How are your bones these days?
It wasn't corns, madam, it was shingles.
Well, you may very well be right.
Thank you, madam. I do assure you it was shingles. A most unfortunate complaint, that being a cutaneous disease which spreads round the crotch like a girdle.
Thank you, Perkins, that will do. I don't think that any of us are particularly interested in your personal ailments.
Oh, I am. I'm absolutely riveted. Perkins, are you sure it wasn't impetigo? Those are those nasty little blisters that cover the entire body until you're just one big puss bag.
Oh, how very, very nasty. I think I'll go upstairs and have a teeny vomit. Dame Edith Runcible, do you know Lady Tremburaine?
Oh, how do you do?
My dear, haven't we met someplace before?
Well, I'm afraid I really can't be sure. The memory is going as fast as the eyesight.
Oh, they do say it's the memory that goes first.
Not necessarily. In my case, it's quite clearly the memories.
Oh, Dame Edith is a very distinguished antiquarian and archaeologist. Oh, Dame Edith, I don't believe you know Rear Admiral Natchwell Foliat. No.
Andreas Capodistrio. Enchanté.
Damn slimy way of going about things, nibbling up fingers.
He almost had mine off down to the second knuckle.
A cocktail, madam?
Oh, do you recommend this?
Most emphatically. It's called a zombie whammy. I made it myself.
Oh, well, in that case. Most unusual.
Fill me up again, will you, Perkins?
Are you a Greek, Mr. Capellini?
Capodistrio. Mostly Demeter, mostly, but a part of my blood is from beyond the Bosphorus.
Ah, Turkey. How well I know it. Up at 4 o'clock in the morning, digging away like moles. Well, by 10 o'clock it's too hot, you see.
Yes, I do see, but please correct me if I'm wrong. It's not the word hot in English slang. It used to describe something stolen.
Well, I really wouldn't know that, Mr. Cappuccino. Slang is scarcely my forte.
Capodistrio. Nonetheless, I believe it is so. If, for example, an archaeologist was to discover a valuable pot and conceal the find and smuggle it out of the country, the pot could be said to be a hot.
You're sherry, lady.
Thanks, Perkins.
There are some people who never forget the face, and others who never forget the face intagliated in a stolen vase, amphora, or wine cup. I am in this latter category.
Perkins, if you don't find me something to gnaw on immediately, I shall go into a diabetic daze.
My God, you're a blackmailer. Shh.
So loud.
Well, by your discomfiture, one would think I was blackmailing you. How much?
You should be able to manage 300 a year, I think.
Oh, but that would cripple my research. It's out of the question.
You must give me leave to believe otherwise. And what is more, I shall want the first half in cash by next week. Oh, I'm afraid it will be exposure, professional ruin, and even perhaps a Greek prison cell. The contemplation of whose slimy old walls, I swear, even an archaeologist like yourself would quickly tire.
Oh, you really are the most odious and wacko turkers ever encountered.
Say, Rear Admiral, Lavinia here was wondering if you had any tales of daring do bashing the boy you were here to tell her about. She's a sucker for daring do's, Lavinia.
Daring do, eh?
Oh, surely there is some outrageous man-to-man incident you can recall, Natchy, that'll make this poor girl's hair curl.
Well, I don't know.
Oh, come now. Do you think I'm referring to catamites? Oh, what the hell's a catamite? Well, it's defined in the Oxford English Dictionary as a sodomite's minion. Hence the phrase, a cat might look at a queen.
Oh, yes, I see. And but what about the eye ties then, Admiral? You must have had some fun fighting them.
No go, little girl. The eye ties were supposed to be our allies, remember?
Oh, yes. With jolly bad luck.
Signora Banti, isn't it about time we donned the jolly old nose bags?
I thought we'd held on for Silas.
But why? Has he got the food boxed up in the back of his car?
You have too voracious an appetite, Cher Raja. Must learn the pleasures of the patient predator.
I hadn't noticed you've learned that also, Mr. Capodistrio. And I see you know Mr. Dashwell, too.
Why, yes, indeed I do.
What?
You seem to know everybody, Mr. Capodistrio.
Not everybody, Mrs. Basby, but I like to think I profit a little from everybody I meet. And that they profit from me. Wouldn't you agree, my dear Miss Hargraves?
Look here, you can't go on setting me harboring like that, old boy.
Oh, old boy is he? We've grown some fancy manners, haven't we?
Well, I'm sorry if you don't approve of my lingo. You have to blame the old alma mater for that, I'm afraid.
And what might that be, the old alma mater?
BNCOU, old sausage. Brasenose College at Oxford University, to be precise.
And subsequently the University of Life, huh?
Well, I've knocked about a bit in the last few years. The opal mining, cattle ranching, the...
Rock breaking, mailbag sawing.
I'm afraid I don't quite follow your drift, old fruit.
Quite simply, old boy, old sausage, old fruit. I'm referring to your spell of penal servitude in the Bogle Road Jail, Brisbane, for your part in the Karenian kangaroo caper.
What do you mean?
Surely it hasn't slipped your mind already. A consignment of souvenir kangaroos made in Cyprus, each with 4 ounces of heroin sewn into its pouch. Or the Guston's officers, who in a rare moment of marsupial insight abounded to the right conclusions, were most unamused. Their displeasure cost you 8 years inside.
In my opinion, you're completely cracked. Off your chump, out to lunch.
And in my opinion, your opinion is as worthless as your character. You must realize that there are some people in this world who never forget the face. And others who never forget the face, even when it has been cunningly changed to serve the needs of criminal impostature. I am in this latter category.
If I were you, amigo, I'd rather be in the category of not making slanderous remarks that might cost me dear.
Your real name is Charles Corrigan, an obscure member of the Australian criminal fraternity. The real Roger Dashwell was accidentally drowned in the Murrumbidgee River while attempting an incautiously inebriated Scottish across on stepping stones. I must say, you seized your moment admirably. And in a trice had him safely buried under your own name. Subsequently, of course, you took the name of Roger Dashwell and in due season turned up in London as the long-lost heir.
But look here, I don't think you can prove a word about this.
Indeed I can. You see, you were rather careless. Removing Dashwell's identity bracelet was not enough. You should have also remembered his signet ring.
Suffering shells. All right, what have you got in mind?
Oh, why don't we start you off with a modest 10 pounds a week?
10 a week? That's a fair sum to sauce bottle. You must be crazy.
Oh, crazier than losing your title and your heiress?
You don't think Lavinia would desert me? Maybe she knew the truth. She loves me.
She loves the idea of becoming the Countess of Bathgate.
Balls! She loves me for myself. For my ready wit, for my roguish smile. For the insouciant scent of my gay foulard scarves. Oh, for my curiously opposed profile. Half Valentino, half Errol Flynn. She told me so, often. You see, amigo, once a caballero like myself has captured a girl's affections, any peccadillos in his past which come to light only serve to make him seem the more ripplingly irresistible.
Very well. Let's ask her, shall we? Miss Hargraves.
All right, I agree.
Yes?
I wondered if I might have a word with you.
I said I agree.
Good. Then you've nothing to fear. Why don't you go and get your charming fiancée a drink?
Or say Lavinia, another of those the futile...
Orange things.
Si, yes.
Thank you. What do you want?
You failed to turn up on Monday.
I've had enough. I think I'd rather let the whole thing come out than spend another fetid evening enduring your little monkey paws racing all over my body. My family would understand, I'm sure.
Oh, my dear Miss Hargraves, it's not your family we're concerned with now. That of the Bathgates. The present Earl is 93 and his heir is Mr. Dashwell. It's almost certain that in the next couple of years that you will become the Countess of Bathgate. Unless he learns about the child whose birth and death you concealed in Turkey last year. I think that might upset his noble scruples somewhat.
You wouldn't tell him?
I ain't prepared to wait until next Monday evening.
All right. But just you wait, you driven little man, when I'm married and have succeeded to the title.
You will still come. What you did may not be grounds for annulment, but it would still interest the Turkish authorities.
What can anyone prove? The child died naturally.
So you say, but But I could tell them would they believe it? And could you afford the scandal of an investigation? See, you can do nothing. As you say in England, I know where the body is entered.
You mean interred?
Thank you. Everyone is so kind. Everyone corrects my English.
You disgust me.
I expect you to discuss Miss Hargraves as much as I enjoy your body. There are some people who never forget the face, and others who never forget the expression on a face which is trying to hide its enjoyment of a little low-life nookie. I'm in this latter category, and I'm absolutely certain that you will be around punctually at 8 o'clock next Monday evening to sample the heady delights of 27 Balaclava Mansions. Gallant Mr. Dashwell, back so soon. Exactly, you suit your name.
How do you mean, old prune?
You dash well. It is English fun, is it not?
Pun. It's a pun.
Fun. Thank you. Everyone is so kind.
Here we all are, gathered together for the weekend in an English country house, and one of us hell-bent on murder. I'm sorry to intrude, but I really can't resist talking to you now, as I stand here in the library at Orca Shamflower Manor, inhaling tobacco smoke deeply, and thinking pretty smugly, I admit, that I really do have a pretty foolproof murder plan. Yes, all has been plotted and brilliantly stage managed. But enough of self-congratulation. One must not be carried away either by the intoxication of the plan or by the strength of the drinks. The drinks at the cocktail hour.
Perkins, what are you doing?
I haven't a frigging notion.
One more drink for everybody, and then we'll start.
Without sir, madam?
Yes, without sir.
Another cocktail, Dame Edith.
Oh, no thank you. I've been whammied enough.
So, when are you to be married, my dear?
Oh, the old ball and chain will be cemented into place at Christmas. I do hope it will all work out.
Well, there's no earthly reason why it shouldn't. So long as you always remember, it takes two to make a marriage. And sometimes several.
It is Mr. Dashwell to whom you are affianced, is it not?
That's right, Dame Edith. Isn't he super?
Oh, yes, he's charming. So tell me, how long have you known him?
Oh, long enough.
Well, I've been married for 30 years, and it's a funny thing, but the longer we're married, the more my husband interests me. I suppose that's because I'm an archaeologist.
I say, I saw in the Times the other day that your uncle has recognized you as his heir. How long were you away exactly?
15 years, senor. Down among the convicts, you know.
Eh? You mean you went to jail?
No, senor. I meant the Aussies.
Oh, well, I suppose a spot of adventure never hurt anybody. Although these days, if you want to see native life, you don't have to leave England.
You mean that greasy peddler over there?
Put a gully in an English drawing room, and it's the end of civilization as we know it.
I have noticed, Mr. Capodistrio, that every time my guests have a chat with you, they finish up unhappy. Are you blackmailing them also?
You all have to live.
Not you, Capodistrio. I see no reason for you to go on living at all.
You know, that's the first time I've ever been threatened by a distinguished member of the legal profession. It's most blood-curdling.
Never underestimate British phlegm, Capodistrio.
I don't know about the British phlegm, my dear Mrs. Dasby, but I do know a little about the British flesh. I can assure you I never do underestimate it. In fact, I have a consuming passion for the English complexion, strawberries and yogurt.
I think you are quite the most despicable man I have ever met.
Me? What do you propose to do about it?
Kill you, Capodistria, that's what I propose to do about it. Kill you, you sticky little worm.
An incautious remark. The first loss of control. I will have to be careful. So perhaps I had better inconspicuously turn away to study the reflection of my face. It has, at all costs, to be studiously composed.
Ladies and gentlemen, dinner is served.
Come along, everybody. Let us not keep cook waiting. She is rather apt to get upset if we keep her masterpieces hanging about.
Gracias, señora. I'm as hungry as a horse.
I could eat a horse if I know anything about that pinch penny cook of theirs. That's exactly what we will be eating.
May I lead you in, ma'am?
Oh, thank you, Rear Admiral. How truly gallant. You make me feel like an old cargo ship being escorted by a frigate.
I shall stay here for a moment. It is always my custom to kneel and pray for a short while before dinner, and thank the good God for the many blessings He has bestowed upon me. I shall be with you all shortly.
got him where I want him. I'll take this oily fellow now, and so I am revenged. And I'll do it boldly in the presence of all, and yet no one will know who done it. Gentlemen, unless you are prepared to leave the murder of the odious Capodistrio unsolved, I must beg your further attention. Immediately after the killing, the police were informed, and while waiting for them to arrive, a little desultory dinner was taken. I must confess that most of the company had no appetite for it, but I ate well enough, considering that the lamb fricassee was raw and the creme brulee overcooked. Finally, I took myself for a stroll in the garden. It was a truly beautiful June evening, scented and still, and as I paced the lawn, listening to the chimes of a distant church clock float up faintly from the valley below, and watching the bats flit through its ancient tower, I knew with a complete certainty that the police would find out absolutely nothing.
What an astonishing way to kill someone, Soft.
I quite agree, sir. 'Tis most odd.
Well, I'll say it is. A fellow gets his nut cut off with a sword before they even started the soup course and no one saw a thing.
Perhaps they're all in it together, like in that Agatha Christie book, Murder on the Orient Express.
You mean it's a crime inspired by detective fiction?
Well, it could be, sir.
If only it were, Sergeant, if only it were. But in my experience, life seldom copies art. It's dull, boring, and routine. So let's begin with the doctor's report.
Aye, sir. The overt cause of death was beheading.
Well, I'll have to say that's just about as overt as you could get.
Aye. Speaking. Aye, doctor. What? I'll tell him. Great. Thank you very much, doctor. 'Twas the doctor, sir.
So I gather. What does he want?
He says he's been examining the victim's head and that there's something very peculiar about it.
Peculiar?
He says it's covered in makeup.
Makeup? Oh, does he mean the stockades of the aging fashion? Little guy to quote the gray of the pencil mustache?
No, sir. Stage makeup, he says.
Stage makeup?
He's washed it off and there's another man underneath who looks quite different. Fair-haired, younger. Sort of regular-looking businessman. He's taken a photograph and it's on its way over.
My God, this case is getting hotter by the minute. Perhaps you're right, Sergeant, when we should look to the world of thriller fiction for a solution after all. Now tell the house guests I'd like to see them.
Aye, sir. Which one first?
All together to start with until we get acquainted.
Right. Perkins, please. Could you ask Mrs. Basby and your guests to step in here for a moment, please?
Very well, ma'am.
You know a bit about detective fiction then, do you, Sergeant?
Oh, aye, sir. I read a lot of them myself. My favorite is Hercule Poirot, The Little Play Cells.
Yes.
You know, sir.
Yes, I prefer Dr. Fell myself, a more erudite class of fellow altogether.
I know him. He's in the John Dixon Carr books, isn't he?
Why, that's right, Sergeant. A whopping great fellow, wheezes about on a cane. He wears a big hat, a black cloak, quotes funny bits of poetry and smokes cigars. Why, I believe that based a bit on that writer fellow, G.K. Chesterton.
Really, sir?
Yes. In another life, I'd often fancy I'd been a bit more like that.
I wouldn't have thought you'd read all those thrillers, sir.
Oh, well, I must confess, Sergeant, I'm somewhat of a fan, although it wouldn't do well for the boys at the yard to know that.
Oh, I can quite see that, sir.
But on this occasion, it may come in handy. I mean, what is the single most important fact about the case, Sergeant, do you think?
The murder itself, sir.
Exactly. I mean, if you were to murder a man, Sergeant, one of the last things you would think of doing is beheading him with a long Tuscarora sword. Now, wouldn't you agree?
It wouldn't be my choice, sir, no.
Ah, it may very well be the choice of someone fascinated by detective fiction.
The house guests, sir.
I'll just chase off that photograph, sir.
Ah, the suspects.
What are you talking about, suspects?
Now, no routine protests, if you please.
Routine protest? What the devil?
I mean, it seems to me that I have been fortunate in a career of run-of-the-mill villainy to find myself for the first time investigating what I believe is a classic closed-circle English country house murder, with half a dozen archetypal suspects as you would find in books, and a butler. So let's not spoil it by routine protests.
What are you looking at me for? I don't know anything about this. I haven't done anything. I'm innocent. Do you hear me? Absolutely innocent.
Now that sort of protest is perfectly permissible, provided it is done in character. For example, you, Rear Admiral, you can bluster, but don't whine. You, Lady Tremory, you can voice your terms of innocence in haughty aphorism. You young people can be racially disrespectful of the law, whilst you, Dame Edith, and you, Mrs. Basby, can be fustian and frumpish. As for you, Perkins, your role is to grovel polysyllabically.
I don't know what you're on about.
Well, I'm sorry if I'm coming on a bit fancy, but it seems to me if I'm to solve this crime, I have to put myself in the position of the person who designed it, and behave a bit more like one of those eccentric sleuths from thriller fiction. Why, it might just give me the proper insights.
Well, at least I see you know who we all are.
No, Perkins here was good enough to supply me with a list of the guests. Fitting the faces to the names required astonishing little skill.
And might we have the pleasure of your name, sir?
I am Chief Inspector Bowden of the CID. I was dining in the area as the Lord Lieutenant of the county when he asked me to take charge of the case. Now that the formalities are over, perhaps we can begin.
Well, surely we're not all here. Where are all the maids and the cook?
I have already seen and discarded them. In detective stories, two terrified skivvies, ravaged by adenoids and asthmatic octogenarian, crippled by bunions the size of Jerusalem artichokes, just wouldn't break.
And I suppose retired rear admirals do race.
But of course, in country house murders, rear admirals are prime suspects. So are doughty female archaeologists, grand titled ladies, demure devs, stuffy lawyers, and rapscallion nephews, newly returned from Australia.
I know nothing about all this.
We shall see, we shall see.
Excuse me, Inspector, but to my mind you're not taking things very seriously.
Ah, the butler speaks, the most favorite suspect of all. Although I must confess, a reasonably keen student of the genre, I can't recall a single detective story in which the butler actually did do it. Perhaps we'll strike lucky tonight.
This is no time to joke, sir.
It isn't. Well, if you ask me, there's something very jokey about this whole setup. It's somehow all too good to be true.
Now look here, Inspector. It seems to me you're being very cavalier about all this. I mean, there's been an appalling killing done here. And you just stand here babbling about country house murders and unstable suspects and I don't know what other blithering tomfoolery. I strongly suggest, sir, that...
Does the rest come off too?
Yes. I'm afraid it does. I'd better come clean. You see, it's very simple. I'm an actor. My real name is Jeremy Fielder, well known on stage and screen for endearing portrayals of crusty colonels, cantankerous clerics, and surly seafarers. Surely you've heard of me.
I can't say that I have, no.
I played the robot in Clash of the Galaxies. Nobody saw my face. The Silent Sea Boy. Lorimer of the Lancers. Oh my God.
Sorry. And how about the rest of you? Are you all actors as well?
I'm Joan Darnley. I specialise in breathless ingenues and children's voices. You know, sexy schoolgirls.
Gordon Grant. Most recently, Elliot in Private Lives, Harrogate Festival. And Milo Tyndall in Sleuth, to Belgrade Coventry. Fluent European accents.
Violet voice, elderly character ladies. Contralto, most famous for my Eliza in almost every provincial theater in the country.
We'll do children's party.
And consenting adult ones too.
Susie Randall, that's me. Randall's the name and Scandal's the game. I started working in this business about 13 years ago in Carousel. Since then I've done the lot from ice skating ingenue to Greek tragedy. However, I don't suppose you could say the big break has come my way yet, but it will. As soon as some smart producer decides to do Medea on ice.
Patrick Meadows, leading roles, numerous films, guest appearances with the Royal Shakespeare Company.
And you, Mrs. Basby?
I'm the hostess.
You mean you've invited all these actors here?
No, it was my husband. Saints preserve us.
Yes, it's something of a miracle, Sergeant, I grant you.
I know ya! Me kids always watch ya on the telly. Your Hiram C. Hooper, the hayseed chicken farmer.
My name is Patrick Meadows, actually. I have played other roles.
Of course you have. Weren't you Professor Screws with the baggy trousers always scratching yourself? What's going on, sir? I've only been gone 5 minutes.
As you can see, with the exception of Mrs. Basby, they're all actors.
You mean none of you are real? No, you better believe it.
Sorry.
Come and give us a pinch. You'll find out I'm real enough.
Miss Boyce, Miss Randall, Miss Darnley, this is Sergeant,
Standish, sir. Avon and Somerset Constabulary. But why, sir?
Why, indeed. An almost complete change of identity. And we haven't even properly started the investigation. What do you have in that envelope, Sergeant?
The photograph of the deceased, sir. That is the Silver's head.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Show it to the company. seem very surprised that this is not the head of Andreas Capodistrio. An overstated and exotic Levantine by all accounts. But that's rather a dull, regular featured English businessman. Oh, come, this lack of surprise surely indicates you recognized him.
I've never seen that fellow before in my life.
It's Jerry Marshall.
Jerry Marshall?
He runs the Jerry Marshall Theatrical Agency. Or rather did run it. Oh my God.
Oh, don't start sniveling, Jim.
You always were a cold bastard, Gordy. You never could relate to anybody much. I suppose that's why you took to bothering God. He has to listen to you.
There is no condemnation to them who walk, not after the flesh, but after the spirit.
It's just horrible. Now I've got to find myself a new agent.
You mean this man is your agent?
Yeah.
Well, were you all his clients?
I was.
Yes.
Well, then, if it's not too much to ask, what are you all doing here?
I was a game.
One at a time. Sergeant! Thank you. Sergeant. Now you, Mr. Fielder, you can start.
It was a job.
A job?
Yes, a job of work. You see, Jerry Marshall called and asked to see me a couple of weeks ago, and he said he had been telephoned by the husband of an extremely wealthy, eccentric woman named Angela Basby. And he asked that we stage what he called a murder game for his wife's birthday entertainment, she being a keen fan of 1930s detective stories.
The plot of the charade was to be invented by Jerry and performed here before dinner tonight by his clients. He himself, being an ex-actor, was also to take part.
Yes, you see, the only stipulation was that the setup had clearly to show equal opportunity for all the suspects to do the murder. At its conclusion, Mrs. Basby here would then try and solve the puzzle. Then, after that, we were all to come out of character and be her guests for the rest of the weekend.
So we were right about detective stories being at the bottom of things, Sergeant. Did you all come here to play this murder game?
Yes.
Well, perhaps you could tell me how it worked. Was there a script involved?
Oh, no. But Jerry sent me a note outlining my character and the story. You see, I was to play the part of an elderly butler, and I had to hire a suitable costume. And he would come up to me during the cocktail hour before dinner and pretend to blackmail me about a theft I had supposedly committed. Most of it, you see, was an improvisation in the style of the 30s. Mind you, I didn't know now how near the knuckle he was going to get. But I guess being Jerry, he had to have had his nasty bit of fun.
He told me the same thing, though buggery and not burglary were to be my crime. I've got the instructions right here.
Was it the same for all of you?
Yes.
Well, what was to happen next? Well, we're all to go to the dining room, save for Jerry, who, as you know, was playing the part of Mr. Capodistrio.
Yes, you see, Inspector, Jerry was to stay over here and kneel and pray. It seems it's the custom in his religion to do so before meals. Though I can't believe that such an excessive display of Mediterranean genuflection is all that acceptable to our Lord. Now, on the let's hear it for Jesus.
Please go on with the explanation.
On the dining room table, there was to be a pile of sealed envelopes with our names on them.
Containing two cards. One blank and one showing our hiding spots amongst the bookshelves there.
What was the point of the blank cards?
Oh, they wasn't all blank, darling, no. One of them cards was to have the word murderer written on it.
Interesting, yes.
Well, we all had to leave the dining room one by one, take the sword from this display on the wall, and then take up our hiding places as indicated on our cards.
Could you all see each other?
No.
Well, go on.
Well, we each had to protrude our swords as if we were about to strike. Then the actor with the murderer card was to slowly lower down his sword and tap Jerry lightly on the neck.
Well, was that all?
Yes.
Let me see those instructions. I will then cry out and collapse. That will be the end of the first part of the game. Your host will conduct a brief examination, during the course of which she will hope to establish the murderer's identity. Very ingenious game. Curious, though, when the invention should end up with a real murder. Don't you think? Weren't you all just a little bit, surprised?
Surprised? It was shocking.
Bloody terrible. It was appalling.
Ghastly.
There was blood everywhere.
I'll never forget it as long as I live. It simply gushed out.
Well, I've never seen anything like it. Except for the time my Auntie Flo took the corner clippers to her old man's hemorrhoids.
Well, then why on earth were you all still playing your parts when I arrived?
Well, we were all so shocked by Mr. Marshall's death, we just didn't know what to do. So we had a conference, and I, being the hostess, decided they should remain as they were.
What on earth for?
Look, none of us actually saw the murder. We thought someone had broken in and that you'd be chasing after him.
Yeah, we thought you'd just ask us a few questions and let us go home. I mean, no one wants to get involved in a murder case, do they? Especially for the money we're getting.
Well, I'm afraid you're all involved. Every single one of you. And I intend to find out how. So who wants to start the ball rolling? Why, you, Mr. Grant. What do you have to tell me?
Nothing. I know absolutely nothing.
Me neither.
We've told you all we know. It's a mystery to us too.
I just want to go home.
Well, exactly.
I also see here from your cards that you may impart personal characteristics as subjects of conversation, provided they don't clash with the role you are playing. Did you all have these same instructions?
That's my card.
Hey, does that mean you really do have hay fever?
I'm afraid so. Had it since birth. Tried everything. Darkened rooms, injections, nasal douches. Nothing seems to work. What about your diabetes?
Oh, absolutely. I'm a walking insulin culture.
Oh, God, the way you go on. My jaundice is real too, but I don't moan about it all the time.
Well, there ain't much to moan about with jaundice, is there? Listen, Inspector, how do you like my performance then? It's not much of a part really, but I thought I was able to bring to it a nicely judged touch of bitchy British hot air.
Oh, was that what it was, darling? I must say, I thought all that puss bag stuff a bit common myself.
Of yours, dear.
Now, ladies, please.
What about you? The aging ingenue, hopping and skipping about like Shirley Temple.
Oh, that is rich. Coming from the only actress alive, definitely known to have played with Booth.
Miss Boyce, I appeal to you as an experienced artist present.
What makes you think that, Inspector?
Oh, shut up, Jill, for Christ's sake.
She started it, and I know what.
There's been a horrible murder done, and we've all got to help the cops find out who topped Jerry.
Good riddance to bad rubbish, I say.
What makes you say that, Miss Darnley?
Nothing?
Nothing.
I only meant, who the hell's going to miss Jerry Marshall?
Mrs. Jerry Marshall.
He had a wife, sir.
Her stage name is Carmen Laverne. Her real name is Thomas Friedman.
I beg your pardon, sir.
Thomas Friedman is a drag queen, Sergeant.
Yeah, the only female impersonator who's more feminine off stage than on.
I see, madam, thank you.
He always did like a bit of trash.
Well, you ought to know, darling. How long was it then? 10 years?
Oh, do shut your mouth, Susie! That was over years ago.
Yeah, and clearing out was about the smartest thing you ever did in your life.
Oh, so Mr. Marshall was more to you than just your agent, Mr. Meadows?
Was. Past tense.
But he was always pestering you to go back to him.
Well, that had to make life a bit difficult, doing business with him every day.
I managed.
I see. Well, is there any suggestion that this Thomas Friedman is impersonating any of the ladies here in this house?
No, Inspector, not to my knowledge. I know all these ladies very well.
Oh, pity. Murder by a jealous female impersonator would have been a most novel crime. Why, I shouldn't think there's a single example of it in the entire canon of detective literature. Can you think of one, Sergeant?
No, sir. Oh, wait a minute. What about the case of the trust transvestite, sir? You know, that was the one.
Oh, thank you, Sergeant. Oh, now let's get back to you, Mrs. Basby. We haven't heard very much from you this evening.
We do know that you and your husband have invited all these actors here. Where is he at present?
I don't know. He's on his way, I think. His car's broke down.
Oh, well then perhaps he's still in London. What's the number?
We don't have a phone.
But your husband said he was calling from your London.
Look, Mrs. Basby, don't you think you better come clean? Both you and your husband are plainly implicated.
I don't have a husband. He died 2 years ago.
What?
All right. All right. You see, I'm an actor too. My real name is Tina Williams. I guess you could say that dignity was my strong suit. You know, wife of cabinet ministers, judges, ambassadors, characters of that sort. I'm scarcely in the business these days. Nowadays, I make my money in the travel agency, and I'm rather the odd man out here because I never knew Jerry Marshall.
Then what on earth are you doing here?
Well, somebody named Silas Basby telephoned me, and he asked me to take the part of his wife in this murder game entertainment. He said he would not make himself known to me immediately, and that I was to pretend to be the hostess until the point at which he revealed himself.
Oh, Sergeant, search this house. If anyone's lurking about, we'll flush them out.
Very good, sir.
And who was here to greet you when you arrived?
No one. The others came later. The house was open but empty. Oh, except for Perkins. I mean, Meadows, dressed as you see here as a butler with terminal stage syphilis.
The old retainer from the cherry orchard. There was no suggestion of advanced venereal disease.
Really? Though that trembling and shaking, it looked like it was going to fall off at any minute.
Did it?
Forsake your fair song and sake those things where Christ sits at the right hand of God. Oh, Mrs. Williams, you're a disgrace to the profession.
I can hardly be that. I'm not in it any longer.
You always were a disaster when you were in it, love. You didn't know the first thing about acting.
Oh, well, you didn't recognize me this evening now, did you? And if you started to become high Lucy Blood,
I became Blumenhuber after I played my Falstaff at the Vic and my Lear. Anyway, it's a very highly successful series.
Harley. Harley?
You lousy little travel agent. Why don't you go book yourself on a 20-year tour of the Falkland Islands?
There is no one in the house, sir.
I see.
Well, I can't wait to tell me kids I've met you, sir.
Oh, piss off!
Thank you, Sergeant. I believe that will be enough paltry imitations for the moment.
Sorry, sir.
So in effect, there is no such person as Angela Basby. Has anyone ever met her? I wouldn't be so quite blasé about all this if I were you. Can't you all see that you've been brought here to serve a purpose?
A purpose? What do you mean a purpose? Look, when I agreed to do the charade, I didn't bargain for any of this.
Me neither. We only came to earn a copper or two.
You should be so lucky. I had the same idea myself.
Listen, Inspector, what exactly do you mean when you say we was brought here for a purpose?
Exactly what I say. Can't you all see you're all a part of the grand design for murder? Sergeant, who owns this house?
I don't know, sir. I had assumed until a few minutes ago that it belonged to Mrs. Williams here.
Oh, well, obviously it doesn't, so I suggest set about finding out.
Right, sir. Good idea.
At the double. Now, let's take stock of where we are. 8 unknown actors employed over the telephone by an unknown man. 7 of them come from one agency. The 8th, a semi-retired actor, is employed over the telephone by the same unknown man. Now, I have to ask myself, does not Mr. Marshall's agency retain an actor that could play the part of a lawyer perfectly adequately?
Of course it does. There's Mary Harvard, she's been doing it for years, and Barbara Layton.
Well, now she's great.
Oh, and Molly Granger.
Well, then why employ a semi-retired actor? And saving your presence, ma'am, a little one known at that. Mrs. Williams, was there anything familiar to you about the voice on the telephone?
Familiar?
Yes, did he have an accent of any kind?
No. There was something funny about it.
What?
Well, I can't be quite certain it was a man.
Well, one thing is for certain. If Angela Masby had been cast from Mr. Marshall's agency, or was an actor that was known to him, he would have become suspicious of this whole thing.
And if he had been suspicious, he wouldn't have played the game, do you think?
Precisely.
So what if he hadn't?
He would not have been murdered.
You mean the whole thing was a plot to kill him?
Of course. Now, what other reason could there be to lure 7 actors down to a remote country house to perform to a non-existent host? The sole purpose was to have Mr. Marshall engineer his own death.
My God! So we were not acting the charade at all. We were unwitting accomplices.
It is incredible.
Well, it's a diabolical plot. I have a good mind to inform Actors' Equity.
But note, you were more than just unwitting accomplices. You were actually helping to conceal the murderer's identity. Don't you see, he or she saw to it that there were 6 other actors in the exact same position to commit the crime.
My God. You mean it has to be one of us?
Oh, what about my so-called husband, Silas Basby?
Don't you see yet? One of you is the so-called Silas Basby. Now I wonder which one of you it could be. Don't think I won't find out, because I will. One of you had to see something when it happened. Well, did you? A shoe, a ring, a hand?
No, we were all hiding. No one could say anything.
Look, the first thing I heard was the head when it hit the floor.
And then the sound of the rolling.
Yeah, and a sort of a dripping noise.
Mrs. Williams, when you arrived here earlier this evening, did you receive the same instructions as the others? Envelope, hiding place, sword?
Yes, I did.
Well, Mr. Marshall could not have prepared an envelope for you, since he thought you were the host, not an actor at all.
So
the envelopes had to be changed by the murderer. The envelopes, you still don't have your envelopes.
Yes.
Well, which one of you has the murderer's card? Come now.
all right. I got it, but that doesn't mean that I did it.
Well, why would any of us do it?
Why, indeed. Which brings us straight to perhaps our only chance of finding out, don't you? So far, we all know you have a great deal in common. I wonder if you all have the same motive.
Naturally they have. That's the point of the question I posed earlier this evening. Where would you hide a murderer? Surely the answer must be clear by now. In a room with the victim, surrounded by multiple suspects, all of whom have exactly the same means, motive, and opportunity to commit murder. What a dullard this inspector is, to be sure. How limpingly he arrives at the obvious facts of manipulation. His slowness in the game, quite literally, makes me see red.
Miss Donnelly, you stated earlier that Mr. Marshall's death was, at least for you, good riddance to bad rubbish. Was it the same for the rest of you?
Shelley Marshall was a first-rate agent and a good pal.
I found he always seemed to know the direction in which one's career should be going.
I had no complaints. The wolf was very far from my door, practically an extinct species.
Come on, which is this crap? I've heard you all bitching about Jerry for years. We loved him because he had us all by the short and curlies.
Go on.
We couldn't leave him
Why not?
because by some legal wheeling dealing, he had us all on 20-year contracts. He took 25% of everything we earned.
Well, that sounds a bit high.
Hi, the normal agent takes 10%.
So I can see why you all despised him.
What's the use of pretending? Jerry Marshall was a clever, sadistic, power-mad queen. If we didn't jump to his tune, we just didn't work.
So it is as I expected. You all had the motive for murdering him. Now what we have to find out is which one of you had the extra motive, as it were. For example, you, Mr. Meadows. You stated earlier you had no idea how near the knuckle Mr. Marshall was going to get. Can you explain to me what you meant by that?
Oh, no. He was a vicious sod. He couldn't play the charade without sticking his knife in.
Well, let me get this clear. Were, for example, any of the things that Mr. Marshall was blackmailing you for in his role as Capodistrio, did they parallel anything he knew about you in real life?
Look, in my case, it was some silly double entendre about servicing. It was nothing, really.
Anyone else? Why, you, Mr. Fielder. In your brief, you were accused of buggery, were you not?
Well, all right. There was this ridiculous incident a few years ago. I was a scoutmaster, and one of the boys' fathers accused me of overseeing his child's ablutions a little too assiduously. He brought a case, but I was acquitted.
Not that that stopped Jerry from bringing it to anyone's attention whenever he had the opportunity.
Don't you know it? But I was acquitted without a stain on my character.
But were you innocent, Jeremy?
Absolutely.
What were you, Gordy?
Meaning?
Well, my fine friend, you come on these days as the leader of the heavenly choir. But remember there was a time that you were just a junkie?
Well, I'm clean now. Completely clean.
Rubbish. You've been hustling dope for Jerry.
You bloody hypocrite, preaching to us this whole
He
time.
forced me to deal. He handed over me with some stuff I'd smuggled for him. He'd have turned me in if I refused.
Hence the Karelian kangaroo caper. He was a right bastard.
Oh, the worst.
What were you hooked on, darling?
Well, I dropped a little acid.
Oh, so that's why all the Jesus stuff.
Oh, well, acid shows you another world, but it doesn't go far enough.
Well, it goes far enough for me. It gives you a great murder motive.
Oh, what about your motive, June?
My motive?
Well, I couldn't help overhearing a little chat about the concealed death of a child. I must say, one did speculate as to whether there might not be the tiniest bit of truth in it.
Well, I shouldn't bother if I were you.
Oh, not even about a certain incident where, as I heard it, the stork got a bit clobbered.
So I had an abortion. These days it's not even an incident. Statistic. I suppose Jerry told you.
Yes, and he also said that he paid for it, and that you were so grateful you agreed to sign with his agency.
Grateful! After the butcher he chose got through with me, I had to have a hysterectomy.
Oh, did you now? Well, you couldn't have been too grateful to him for that, now could you? Anyone else have anything to say?
Whilst we're on the subject of speculation, Susie, what about you and all that secret information about German submarines you had to get out of your husband? Doesn't it refer to something you did with Andrew?
Who's Andrew?
Andrew Chalk, my husband.
Isn't he one of the program controllers at the BBC?
So what?
Don't I recall hearing a little rumor about a secret new program that got leaked to your lover in a rival network?
You dirty little pompous Irish cow. No one knew about that.
Except Jerry. He had told Andrew it would have been curtains for her ladyship's marriage, and you sure as hell wouldn't like being called just plain Miss again, would you?
You bloody little leprechaun.
Leprechaun? Little leprechaun's gonna kill you! Let go!
Is that the lot?
Oh, Violet.
What?
Where have you brought up in a charge of shoplifting in the old Portobello market?
Oh, God, you've got a good memory.
Just one of the tools of the trade comes in very handy when you're playing leading roles.
Of course, you were living with Jerry at the time, so you knew the case got maximum publicity. On the front page of the Mirror it was, and he had put it in. And you can imagine my agony. Anyway, you know it was all a mistake. I was merely taking back a vase that had been stolen from my house a few weeks previously.
Wasn't it bloody typical of Jerry to use it in the game, though?
Well, I can certainly see why you all hated him. But it still boils down to him taking 25% of your income.
Oh, except me. I didn't know him, remember? I was a member of his agency.
Are you trying to tell me, Mrs. Williams, that you had no motive of any kind for the death of Mr. Marshall?
Yes, in a nutshell, that's exactly what I'm trying to tell you.
Then I fail to understand what you're doing here, since the murderer's plan depended upon everyone having one. Your motive, Mrs. Williams.
All right. I had a daughter, and she was young and lovely and stage-struck, and Jerry Marshall told her he'd make her a star. Well, instead he destroyed her. Escort agencies, host us in at those business conferences, and finally call girl stuff. What the booze didn't do for her, the drugs did. My poor girl was in her grave before she was 16, and the shackle had killed my husband.
So you've always felt the need for revenge.
Men like Marshall, they should be...
Exterminated.
Yes, they destroy their victims, don't they? I just suppose I'm not the stuff the murderers are made of.
I heard you threatened Jerry earlier, you know. We all did.
I propose to kill you, you stinking little worm. That's what you shouted at him.
Yeah, but that was in the charade. It was part of the improvisation. Look, Inspector, you got to believe me. If I was going to be the murderer, I wouldn't have been daft enough to give myself the murderer card now, would I?
Why not? It's the perfect double bluff.
But I didn't do it!
Oh, Sergeant, did you find out who owns this house?
I'm afraid I had, sir. He's in the local churchyard. He died 2 months ago.
Then this house...
His house and its contents go to auction next week, sir.
Oh, much as I expected, Sergeant. Our murderer has done his work thoroughly. What a better place for a stunt like this than a fully furnished, remote country house temporarily abandoned. A house, moreover, with intriguing architectural characteristics that may just tell us what we want to know, Sergeant.
Sir.
I know it's a trifle little old hat, but I'm going to reconstruct the crime, and I want you to play the victim.
Play the victim?
Oh, yes. Alas, regardless of their doom, the little victims play. No sense of their ills to come or care beyond the day, as Thomas Gray has it. Come along, Sergeant. Kneel down now. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want you all to leave the room. I want you to return as you did before. Take your swords from the wall there, and conceal yourselves in your original hiding places. Then, upon my command, you will show me how you would execute my sergeant by tapping her lightly on the back of her neck with your swords. Right, off we go!
Wait a minute! Now look here, sir! These swords are razor sharp! Can we just simulate the action? I mean, sir, don't you remember a murder we played when the reconstruction went wrong?
No, Sergeant, absolutely not. Come, I hope you don't plan on introducing an element of pusillanimity into the long and honorable tradition of police bravery.
Frankly, sir, I can see no good reason for arming a suspected murderer.
Nor do I. I do not care to participate. In fact, I'm going to talk to you because
Oh, later, Mrs. Williams. Stand on your knees. Right, up we go.
I don't like it, sir. Anyone who can kill in a room full of people is either mad or has supernatural nerves. Couldn't they at least sheath the swords?
Comfort yourself, Sergeant, that no one would dare commit a murder in the presence of the guard. My presence is your shield. Right, off we go.
What a foolhardy fellow this inspector is, to be sure. So no one would dare to commit murder in front of him. My presence is your shield indeed. Some shield. But I I do think he's getting just a little too close. It's about time he was discredited, and that shouldn't be too difficult, not with him dressed up like that, making a game out of solving my murder. Always had a taste for being one of the great amateur detectives, did he? Well, every great whodunit needs a good, juicy, slap-up second murder, doesn't it?
Right now. Thank you, Mr. Fielder. Next, please. Thank you very much, Miss Dartley. Next customer. Thank you very much, Mr. Grant. Next. Oh, thank you, Miss Randall. Next, please. Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Meadows. Next customer. Oh, in your debt, Miss Boyce. And lastly, it takes no Einsteinian leap to deduce that Mrs. Wait, just one moment. Just one moment, please. It seems to me that you're in the wrong position.
What do you mean the wrong position?
Well, you might have easily split Mr. Marshall's head open from here, but you could have decapitated him.
But I tell you, I was here.
Oh, nonsense. The murderer's plan depended upon everyone having equal opportunity to commit the crime. Let me see your card. That will tell me your exact position. Your position is behind the bookcase now.
Never mind all this, because I got to talk to you.
Oh, Mrs. Williams! Later! This is reconstruction, not a debate! Will you please oblige now? Strike now, please. Very revealing, most revealing indeed. If you'll kindly hold your places behind the bookcases for a moment longer while I have a word with my sergeant. Well, Sergeant, it seems to me you've held your head admirably.
I'm still not sure what it all proves, sir.
It proved beyond any shadow of a doubt who the murderer is.
It did, sir.
Oh, it did to me most clearly. But I suppose you have to be trained for these sort of things. Mr. Marshall's head had to be severed by what needed to be a full and complete sweep of the saw. Those naturally who are left-handed would stand on the right of him to cut his head off. Only one could have delivered a clean blow as we just saw.
And there was only one left-handed person. At least there was only one person who struck me from my right-hand side.
Exactly. Quada rat demonstrandum. I'm afraid the game is up. Now you can speak, Mrs. Williams. Voila, Sergeant. There stands your murderer. My God, she's dead!
Ah! Please preserve us! All of you lay your swords down beside you on the floor and clear up out of there! Move! Move! Over there, move! One of the ovens must have been left-handed, sir, and changed its place during the reconstruction.
Well, I suppose it couldn't be suicide. The humiliation of being unmasked by a superior intellect.
I'm afraid not, sir. It's got to be murder.
Silas Basby strikes again. And so the investigation looks like it's coming to an end with the dear old coppers satisfactorily baffled. And you too, I hope. You cannot all be as stupid as the inspector. Mind you, to give him his due, he did find out that the murderer was left-handed, as I have been all evening. Except, of course, for the last 5 minutes, when I changed hands, when I saw what he was up to. But of course, you must have noticed that too.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have an apology to make to all of you. I had thought that by assuming the personality of a 1930s fictional detective, that it would allow me to gain proper insight into the murderer's mind. Well, alas, it has proven otherwise. All that I've done is, by abandoning my normal procedure, is allowed myself to become confused. Confused to the crucial extent of not listening to the woman who knew the truth, and then allowing her to be murdered in front of me before she could speak. And what's more, I must confess, I haven't the faintest idea of the killer's identity. Therefore, I've taken the position to resign from the case.
Oh, you can't really mean that, sir.
Oh, I'm afraid, Sergeant, my decision is irrevocable. Anyway, I'm just jumping the super's gun.
Won't you just have one more try, sir?
Oh, I tell you, Sergeant, it's no use. I was just indulging in my fantasy to be Dr. Fell in the real English country house murder. But I never thought I'd get one, where all the suspects have the exact same means, the exact same motive, and the exact same opportunity for committing the crime. I only really did think that happened in books. Well, I guess we better be going, Sergeant. Come along. Good night, everyone. I'm sorry.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. This case seems to have sent the inspector clear around the bend. However, don't think any of you are going home, because you're not. No one is to leave here till the new inspector arrives. Don't worry, I'll have him here within the hour.
You can't just run off like that and leave us here all alone.
Yes, I mean, one of us is the murderer. Your inspector said so himself.
All of you'll be all right. If you stick together and don't leave each other's sight, that is. The new man won't be long.
You can't leave us now.
I'm frightened.
I know what you mean. I don't know what that couple thinks she's doing, leaving us here at the mercy of a murderer.
Well, you'd better watch out. If he comes near me, I'll have his nuts off.
Who's saying it's a hate?
Well, I'm not staying around to find out. I'm getting out of here.
Not so fast, Miss Randall. I think I'll just have a wee photo for identification purposes, in case any of you decide to run off. I mean, we don't even know why poor Mrs. Williams was murdered yet, do we?
I do. Mrs. Williams was murdered for a very simple reason. She had recognized my voice. By killing her with one stroke, I protected myself and discredited the inspector. So, that's just about it. Bye-bye now. I'm signing off. But just as a matter of interest, have you guessed who done it? Not that it's a matter of guesswork, because in the course of these proceedings, as I said I would, I have let fall certain deliberate clues as to who I am not. Collect them all together, and you must know who I am. To be specific, a person with diabetes would not eat creme brulee for dinner, as it is covered with a thick layer of brown sugar. Similarly, a person with jaundice could never, and I quote, be carried away by the strength of the drinks at the cocktail hour, because that person would not be drinking alcohol. A person smoking a pipe does not inhale the smoke deeply, nor does a person with hay fever stroll in a scented garden on a warm June evening. Any more than a person who is desperately short-sighted would be able to see bats flitting through the tower of a distant church, as the other two are dead. That leaves me. I'm sorry for the assumed voice, but without it, identification would have been much too cretinously simple. But now, as the evening is over, there is no further point in concealment. So I have decided to speak this last valediction to you out loud in my own natural voice, the voice you've been listening to all evening. And if you still don't get it, well, I wash my hands of you, and I suggest you come back and try again another night.
Good night.
I suddenly realized that I was wrong. I know who the murderer is. Well, we just couldn't leave it there now, could we? There's only one amongst you that has a career substantial enough to justify murdering the man that would continue to take 25% of it, whether he represented you or not. Hardly enough motive for an elderly character actor. Or for someone who's eked out a career and doing children's parties. Or for a rep player. For the same reason we can discount an ice skating soubrette whose main chance hasn't come yet. And for an ingenue specializing in children's voices. But you, Mr. Meadows, you with your TV personality, why, you are an entirely different proposition altogether.
It's a very cunning theory, but utterly ridiculous.
Oh, really? Well, I don't think so. Not taken in conjunction with one little fact.
Oh. What fact?
When you stupidly attacked Mrs. Williams earlier as being a disaster as an actor, as you always have been, you clearly identified that you knew her when she had been one, and the others did not. Therefore, you could have been the only one to telephone her and engage her.
You can't prove a bloody thing, old boy.
Never mind about that. I'm arresting you now and I'll prove it later.
Stay back! All of you! Stay right where you are! I tell you, you're not putting me behind bars!
Oh, you fool! Grabbing that sword in your left hand is just giving us all the proof we need.
Hell's teeth!
Put the cuffs on himself.
Right, sir. We get you now, old boy.
All right. It's a fair comp. I am the only one of this motley pack of hams with a career worth killing for. But there was something else. It was I who left Jerry, and he was very cut up about it. Hell hath no fury like a poof-toss scorned, you might say. Anyway, after he continued to take 25% of my considerable earnings, as I only realized recently after that, he set out to deliberately ruin my career. under the guise of forgiveness and friendship. He forced me to work for those American TV networks, doing those stupid, mindless kid shows. Hey, Professor Scrooge Bruno and his Bionic Bear and The Haunting of Hamburger Heaven. And now, here, see Lupin Hooper, the hayseed chicken farmer. I was suddenly a figure of fun. There would be no more Falstaff, no more Lear. Just he got even with me, all right. But I got even with him, just like I got even with that lousy travel agent Williams, who's about to reveal my wonderful performance as Silas Basby. But I must say, it took your exalted brain long enough to figure it out.
That's because I believed in my own theory of the non-culpability of servants in detective literature. Why, this may be for the first time in a major criminal enterprise that irrefutably, indisputably, incontestably, and incontrovertibly, the butler did it. Come along.